Department recommendations, 2017 Macomb County Apportionment Report. Director Smigiel. Is there a motion? Moved by Toko, supported by Lucido.
So the item before you, as indicated in the agenda, is the 2017 Apportionment Report, which is a compilation of all the various millage rates for all the different sorts of millages that are levied throughout the various taxing units throughout the county, cities, townships, villages, schools, HCMA, so on and so forth. Those are spelled out in fair amount of detail, along with the total taxable value by community and what each of those millages generates in terms of tax revenue. There's also information on industrial facility tax properties that Commissioner Drillette was interested in not too long ago. There are also letters in here from several communities who did not properly apply the Headley rollback, so they're filing a corrective action plan, more or less, for the taxes that they over levied, which generally speaking is they're going to give credits on next summer's tax bills. We come to you every year. The board's required to approve this report at its meeting in October by state law. Kristen Sieloff, the Equalization Director, is here, who can also answer questions about this, probably in more authoritative manner than myself. And so on. So if you have any questions, one of us should be able to answer them for you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just first, I've had a couple occasions to contact the Equalization Department and ask questions on a couple of issues, and they've always done an outstanding job in responding. They seem to be very professional and know exactly what they're doing. So I appreciate that work and that the department does.
Our staff are great.
Yes, they are. My question pertains to what I was asking about last week when we received a receiving file regarding a corporate welfare or corporate tax abatement that was granted. And it seemed inappropriate to vote against a receiving file. My question is, and it was kind of mentioned that perhaps I needed to vote against the apportionment report if I didn't like the special breaks given out to specific companies, with regard to their property taxes. But that seems a little weird, too, voting against the apportionment report because I disagree with the county waiving the taxes for a particular corporation or so. I guess my question is, does the county have any vote which we cast on whether or not we want to waive taxes for specific companies? Or are we just receiving file and those decisions are all made at the local level and they're imposed upon us as a county and we have no choice in that matter?
I spoke with Kristen on this, and she's prepared to answer.
Good afternoon, everybody. In response to your question, yes and no.
Oh.
I
don't know if I can vote yes and no.
So let me enlighten you a little bit on the process.
Okay.
So if there's an applicant in a local unit that wishes to receive an abatement, they have to first make sure that there's an industrial development district for the specific parcel or parcels that they're looking to have the abatement on. There's certain things that you can have abated. Land is never abated, okay? So it's just for new facilities, rehabs, and new machinery and equipment that would be coming in. So they come to the local unit and say, hey, we would like to apply for an abatement. There's a development district already on that particular parcel, so we want to make application. So there are two public hearings that are held during the process. The first one is when the development district is established, and that's where the local unit has the most say. Because once they've agreed to establish the district on that particular site, that gives the property owner or the occupant, in this case, this is a tenant coming before the township, they can make application, and it's really difficult for the township or city board to come back and say, no, we're not going to give you the exemption certificate. Because, well, then why did you give it a development district in the first place? So At the point where the district has been established and the company or the applicant comes and makes application for this exemption, basically the township or the city has jurisdiction over the number of years. Okay, and typically these run anywhere from 1 to 12 years. It can be technically extended to 14 years, but typically they're 1 to 12 years, depending on the wording of the resolution. This board, because it's a taxing entity, taxing authority, has the right to come to the public hearing and make their case known, say why or why not you're in support of this. But it's only at the public hearing, which happened last night on the particular one. So what the townships and the cities do is they'll give you guys notice that the public hearing is being held, because that's your opportunity to come and say, hey, we like it or we don't. But the better time to do that is when the development district is being held. Because once the district has been formed, it's difficult to say no. And the State Tax Commission will get into, no, you can't really, it has to be a real good reason why you wouldn't accept the application. And the final application, once it's approved at the local level, it does go to the State Tax Commission for final approval.
Okay, but it never comes to us for
No.
a final approval.
No, it does not.
So our involvement would be primarily beneficial or effective if the county were for some reason to go to this local hearing and weigh in. Yet if the local municipality overrides, let's suppose that the county does weigh in and says we don't want this to be a tax for some reason, we could be overridden, and then we have no choice as to whether or not
Right.
we have to forego taxes on that particular
Right.
unit.
And just so that you know, this is not something that's done lightly. Typically, our planning department here is involved with the local units, because the idea about these abatements is to bring new business to that locale. So, this is a parcel, I used to work for Shelby Township. This is a parcel that I went by for years
Right.
as an appraiser. It's been empty for years.
Right.
Everybody, all the taxing authorities will still get the taxes that have been levied on the land since they started levying assessments on that, okay? By allowing an abatement to occur, you now have a 22,000 square foot improvement to that land.
Sure.
You're going to generate half the taxes.
The argument obviously is that, I remember a case in the state legislature where an abatement was granted for Boar's Head meats because we would get that new revenue as a state. But we've had a meat company in Michigan for 137 years that doesn't get a dime off that processes meat, that now has to pay much higher taxes than the newcomer, Boar's Head Meat, and can undercut them in the marketplace because they got a lot lower taxes than the established businesses that have been here and providing jobs for decades in many cases. So it's a fun argument to have. I guess I'm more curious as to whether or not what our role is in, being told that we are required to provide that corporate welfare break, but we have no say over it.
Well, and again, if you came to the public hearings and made a persuasive argument as to why the abatement shouldn't be granted or the district wouldn't be granted, I'm sure the township board, in this case Shelby Township, would have given that, the consideration that was due in determining whether or not to even
Right.
establish the district.
But we don't even have a say in that. They may or may not. It's up to the local unit.
Yeah, you have a say. You can make your protest,
Right.
but it's like
But we don't have a vote.
You don't have a vote.
Okay. That's essentially what it boils down to, what I needed to know. I appreciate that explanation. It was very thorough. Thank you.
You're welcome. And just so that you know, in this case, the county taxes that are, I did calculate that for you guys, and the amount of taxes that this improvement would have generated at full was $2,425 per year, and because of the abatement, it's $1,212.
I mean, it's obviously a bigger dollar amount at the local level and other levels. We're a relatively small percentage as the county tax. Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Majek.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very interesting, Leon, a Republican talking about corporate welfare. Okay, so I have questions for anybody out there in the audience. I'm looking on page 10 with the little pie chart here. Just a couple questions on that. First thing would be the simpler question would be the personal property tax elimination, okay? So because that was passed, why are we still seeing taxable value under the personal columns? I think I asked this a year ago, but I cannot remember the reason why.
So there's three different kinds of
Right.
personal property. Utility is always going to be there.
Okay,
Okay, so there is no exemption in place at this time for utility property. Commercial personal has the 80,000 or less exemption, small business tax, small business exemption. The industrial is in the phase-out stages, and it will not be completely phased out until 2023. So, but that being said, the eligible manufacturing personal property exemption is only for those entities that apply for it.
I understand.
So there's a chance that there are still some out there that aren't applying for it, and they're paying full ad valorem.
I did that in my business, actually, but I missed out a year or two, but I figured it out.
Yeah, so you'll continue to see industrial personal property taxable value until 2023, and potentially much smaller amounts beyond. For those that
Does
did
the
not file.
industrial phase-out relate to the ballot proposal, PPT tax elimination?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was for those two line items there, right? Commercial and industrial, that's all.
For those two line items?
Line items, here, I'm looking here, personal, commercial,
Commercial, personal, industrial.
and then personal, industrial, yeah. I'm looking on page 10 here.
Right.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And just a sort of comment on that, if you look at the other pie chart here, the lower right, it has residential being 73% makeup of all the properties. You know, kind of gets to what Leon talks about is over the years, over decades, as these abatements are being granted and as the elimination of personal property tax is being phased out and worked in there. Obviously, that residential pie gets bigger because the municipalities have to make that up. So I'm sure 20, 30, 40 years ago, residential makeup was probably a smaller portion, just my personal opinion there. So now if we look here at the other column here, and this is for maybe some of the new commissioners, taxing unit, you got the county there all the way down to cities, and the total taxes, that's what we pay in our tax bill, what we get. So I have a question, Steve. So when I pay my taxes, I live in Sterling Heights. I write a check to the city of Sterling Heights for my taxes. It goes to them, and then do they disperse that to the county? How's the county get that money?
It comes from the locals.
From the locals to the finance department or something?
Most of them wire their money, and it
Okay.
comes through the treasurer's office.
So city treasurer's office to the county treasurer's
Correct.
office? Okay. So my question here now relates to revenue sharing and the loss of revenue sharing. I'm looking here at some numbers that Mike O'Meara gave to us last week. That he attended a Michigan Municipal League forum about this, and the city of Sterling Heights lost $44 million in revenue sharing from 2003 to 2016. I'm just wondering, does that apply to any of the taxes? That would be actually under cities, the very bottom one. So when you talk about revenue loss for the communities, is there, which line item is that apply to in here, if that makes sense?
There's nothing in
Nothing
here
in there.
about revenue sharing.
Okay.
At all.
So revenue sharing is because of that deals with what the liquor tax?
Sales tax.
Sales tax. Okay.
Yeah, we receive separate funding for the liquor tax.
Okay, so can you just do me a favor, explain to me, how much do we pay in sales tax? How does that work, that process, the flow of
How much
that?
do we receive?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, I'm a consumer.
Yeah.
I go and buy a hamburger somewhere, I'm paying sales tax on that, was that 6% or something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I pay that, and then that money goes to the state
Goes to the
government?
state of Michigan, then they disperse to all the counties throughout, and all the locals
Okay.
throughout the state, depending on if
Okay.
it's statutory or constitutional.
Oh, okay, so there's an actual law in line
Yeah,
that
the Revenue
says
Sharing Act that
a percentage, each community has to receive this amount. So now, when the state does not, when we have a loss of revenue sharing, how does the state get away with that? Shorting everybody, how is that within the law, I guess?
Well, there's, depending on If you're a local unit,
Right.
there's some constitutional guarantees.
Okay.
We're a county, so it's more discretionary, it's statutory. So for a county, the state can just reduce revenue sharing at their discretion. And they've done that in various
Right.
times over the years that I've been here.
But let me ask you this question. So for example, City of Sterling Heights, have they lost out a bigger percentage of revenue sharing than, say, the county, Macomb County government?
I don't know that.
Like, do counties get more money than the cities, or you don't know that?
I
do
don't
you?
know that.
Okay. I guess that's all I have. Thank you, and I'll make the motion to receive and file this apportionment report. So, thank you.
We already did it. Thank you. Commissioner Leonetti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve and Kristen, I just wanted to thank you, and I see Joe Romano's coming up behind me, but on behalf of Joe and I, thank you for helping us with our math earlier. I also want to say, Kristen, you always do a good job. You know what I mean? You know your stuff.
I did an excellent job on this
Well,
apportionment.
I even like that. That's even a better.
Yeah.
Yes, you do an excellent job. In fact, Commissioner Lucido and I were commenting on just how sharp you are at everything. So appreciate your good work. Thank you. You have good answers. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
They're gonna give me the
Commissioner
kudos.
Romano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back to Leon, Mr. Drillette's, Commissioner Drillette's questions about the IFECs. Back in Sterling Heights, we used to have, and in fact, we still have people that show up at every meeting when these abatements are giving out, and they object to them because it takes away from the schools and it takes away from, and the question is this, and I'll use somebody for an example, Amazon, who went just recently to Shelby, is that correct? Okay, so Amazon goes to Shelby and says, listen, I'd like a IFEC because we're coming in new, we're bringing in a new product, we'd like an abatement. And Shelby says to him, you know what, I don't think we want to do that. Do you honestly think for the numbers that Amazon's going to stay in Shelby? Or would they start looking in Sterling Heights or Harrison or whatever you? This is an inducement for businesses, or I should say it's an inducement for the Sterling Heights, for the businesses, so that when they come into us, they realize that they can give these abatements. I've been giving abatements to businesses for God knows how long, and I've been chastised for it. For example, why would Chrysler, who gets abatements continuously, Ford, somebody just put $1 billion into that. Why would they want to do that if in fact we did? People say to me, well, they're going to do it anyway. Are you willing to gamble that they're going to do it anyway, or would they just shut down and say, you know what, we're not going to do these improvements, we're not going to bring in this new machinery, we're not going to do all this personal property because we're not getting any abatements, they don't have to do that. So the state says to them, go to the municipalities, give it a shot. As far as we're concerned, you can do this, but you still need local municipality approval. So when they come to us, we do that. And on the second part of that, we give these 7, 6, whatever year abatements that they're for because they're hiring employees and they're doing machinery improvement and bringing in. If they don't comply with that, and they're checked on that by the local assessor, if they don't comply with that, they pay. Now, we've had one that shut down on us after 3 years, and we gave them a 7-year. They got to pay. They got to come back. We went after them, and we made them pay. So taking that into consideration, that's the reason for those, and the reasons that we do give them. Am I real crazy about it? I agree with Commissioner Drollet. No, that's less money we're receiving, but these are things, it's something that you have to swallow in order to maintain those businesses, as far as I'm concerned. Let me go to Commissioner Mijek, that $40 million. The state balanced their budget on Sterling Heights back. And it's no other way to say it. It's that simple. Not only Sterling Heights, but all the municipalities. They took away that tax from, and the money that we should legally entitled to. They say, no, we're going to keep that and give you a lower percentage. How do you make up that $40 million? And where does it all trickle down to? We all know where it goes down to, the individual taxpayer. So now we're going to be in a hole for a whole lot of money. How are we going to recoup that? Hopefully we can come back to when the state starts doling that out, and that's all they do is dole it out. We're not going to get anywhere near that kind of money. So it's a damned if you do and a damned if you don't situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, and before I call on Commissioner Carabelli, I see Commissioner Gillette's press the button again. What I don't want to do is have a debate between commissioners on something we have no authority over. So if that's why you press the button, I hope you will consider to withdraw. With that, I'll call on Commissioner Carabelli.
Couple of things. First of all, Steve, you came up and you had mentioned that there was a, I believe you said an overcharge on the industrial. Is that what you said?
It depends on what levy
In
it
the very
is.
beginning, you said.
Yeah, there's a
they're gonna give
few
credit back
communities-
in the spring taxes. What was that again you said?
So there's a few communities that did not apply the millage reduction fraction.
For what
the-
portion of the tax?
Depends on what particular millage it is, actually. Sterling Heights, for example, I think was on a recreation millage. I don't know them all by heart, but what they've done is on certain millages, could be a new millage. In some instances, they didn't apply the millage reduction fraction, so they basically over levied on this summer's taxes. And they're gonna give credits on next summer's taxes.
Okay. My question is, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
Well, it depends on the particular millage. The millage that Commissioner Leonetti and Commissioner Romano were talking about was 58 cents on a $100,000 assessed value home. It was .0058 mils. Yeah, generally nothing significant. I don't know the total dollars, but,
25,000, I just yeah.
well, yeah,
I
for
just
City of Sterling
calculated.
Heights, the total
Over levy.
over levy was 23,000 for the entire city.
Okay, because I'm going back, when you said that, I got nervous, because I remember Romeo Ford plant, fought their assessment years back, and then the
Right.
community almost bankrupt trying to pay that, but
Right.
figure out how they
Right.
were gonna
Right.
take
Another
care.
example, I'm looking at
You
the
didn't get
East,
in depth on it, and I just felt that I
yeah,
had to
the East
ask.
Point, they over levied by .0045 mils, which would be 45 cents on a $100,000 house, kind of thing.
Okay. My other question is this. You brought up that some of the property owners here in our county, and Commissioner Mike Jack said, yes, I was one of those. They didn't apply for their exemption for the personal property. Is that what you're saying? Some companies did not apply for that, and therefore they're not receiving
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple of them.
All right. My concern, and I'm only speaking for myself, I can't speak for the rest of the commissioners here, but I think it's upon us to make sure that everybody knows who has a business here, that they're not overpaying taxes and get taken advantage of. And if there's something there that they should be filing to make sure that they're paying the appropriate amount, I, for one, want to make sure that that information is disseminated to all the business owners to make sure it's all being done the right way and fairly to everybody. So I don't know
If
how.
I can, through the chair, the local communities send out a letter. There's a deadline, I think, from February 10th or February 20th for that. The local communities send that letter out. So it just happened that I missed that letter or misplaced it. But that's the responsibility of the locals to do that.
Okay, I understand that. Again, one commissioner, I don't think that if we know somebody's overpaying, and I don't want that gotcha thing, because I want those businesses to stay here and not feel that they got taken advantage of.
My comment was there are a couple of businesses that are choosing to not file for the exemption. And yes, that's the same face I made. There's one in Mount Clemens that is not filing it because they would rather just pay the ad valorem taxes and not have to deal with the hassle at the state, because it's, the program, you know, we get the information in at the local level. It's then exported out to the state. It then goes to the state website. Then it's on the property owner to go in there and register and do everything and make their payments by a certain amount of time and all of that. And the one taxpayer in Mount Clemens said, I have enough trouble with income taxes and all of that through the state that I do not trust this program, and I'm absolutely flat out refusing. And the assessor asked me, can we make them? And I said, no, it's an application for an exemption. We can't make anybody apply for an exemption. We make them aware of it, and all the local units are really good at doing that, but we cannot make somebody apply for it. That's,
Okay.
you know.
I just, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam.
Okay, on the first round, Commissioner Duge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good report.
Thank you.
By looking at this, Warren has got over levied also. So I'm sure that we'll have something close to Sterling Heights, 25,000, whatever it is. But my question goes to the rate request. There are a variety of reasons why somebody would want to get their property abated and they're going in. Now, Amazon has been called out here. Didn't Amazon, wasn't there a brownfield authority involved in that also?
There's a lot of rehab, you know,
There's
occupy
a
the
ton of
space.
things that go into that.
Yeah.
Being that it's a brownfield doesn't show up on any of these rate requests that I've seen. Can you touch a little bit on how a brownfield authority works as far as the rate requests and why it is not included in this list? And I'm looking at the city of Warren just for, I really don't care what's going on in Sterling Heights. But is there, will brownfield authorities be listed on any of this?
Are you referring to the actual apportionment report?
Yeah,
Or the.
Well, it wouldn't be listed on the millage, because it doesn't affect
I
the
don't think that we
millage
list them
rate.
separately on the apportionment report.
No,
I
we
don't
do
think they're
not.
listed separately, Commissioner.
well,
The wind zones are, but not the brownfields.
Right, and the TIFAs and the DDAs
Yeah,
and all those
I don't think the
are
brownfields are on here.
listed.
are they?
No, I don't
No,
think
they're
so.
not.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
But there are tax breaks for brownfields, tax breaks for TIFAs, although TIFAs can no longer get money because it was sunset in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. They could still collect taxes, but you can't take out any more loans for TIFAs. That's why everybody's gone bananas with DDAs now. But, you know, it's important that we understand that some of these tax breaks are generating, it's better to get $1,000 on a parcel and get a break on the, as opposed to charging $2,000 for 5, 10, for 12 or 14 years. It's better to get something than nothing.
That's exactly what I told my township supervisor when I worked at Independence Township.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better to get 50% of something.
And
than
I have no
50%.
problems with it, although I agree with Commissioner Drollet that there's a certain inequity in it in established businesses. But that being said, if nobody wants to go for an abatement, that's up to them.
Right.
And I can understand why somebody wouldn't, because it really is a pain in the neck. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sauger.
Yes, thank you. This is in regards to Commissioner Romano's remark about the tax abatements. And Commissioner Duje will remember this. Back a few years, General Motors, one of the big tax abatement down in Warren. And there were some people on that council that were not for it. General Motors was threatening to pull out, and they could have pulled out, but they got enough votes and it went through. So them abatements are important, and that thing in Warren was really serious, because if General Motors would have pulled out, you know, who knows what would have gone in there. But it did happen, so abatements are important. Thank you.
Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your concern about this spiraling into something beyond the.
Well, and then everybody else, and then everybody else debated
And
it, so
I didn't mean to open that complete can of worms, but obviously I did. I was just concerned when I was going to have a chance to, vote, if there was going to be a chance to vote on that particular issue. And I just want to just point out that I appreciate the perspective of Commissioners Romano, Sauger, and others. I completely understand that the incentives are set up in a way that it puts a lot of local units of government, county governments, everyone in a catch-22 with these, difficult decisions and so forth. So I completely understand that perspective. And, certainly when I was in the legislature, I started out approving a lot of these things. I just changed my mind gradually when I saw that, the bigger you were, the bigger your lobbying arm was, and mom and pop competing against Amazon is now going to pay higher taxes than Amazon. And then, just the injustice of it become a political decision with a lot of lobbying sometimes, not at this level, not the local level necessarily, but, in the big picture of things. And I hope that someday, it won't be here, it won't be this meeting, that there can be found a way to make sure that our taxes are fairly and uniformly applied to folks. rather than, it being political decisions or, leverage type things. So I apologize for broadening this into something beyond the scope of the agenda item. But thank you.
That's okay. No, I wasn't singling you out, but apparently the message didn't get out there because everybody debated anyway. So, okay, and I just want commissioners to realize this is a motion to forward to full board for approval. It's not a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Brown, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
There might be possible, Commissioner Gillette, if you're concerned about it, you might be able to separate an item from the report and vote against it individually if you'd like to at the committee tomorrow or Thursday when we next time meet, should you be so inclined.
Just based on the information I received this evening, it sounds like we don't have a say whether we all vote against this apportionment report or not.
We can
So,
express your displeasure.
Yeah, I appreciate that suggestion, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I think at this point, being that it really won't have an effect, even if we all voted against it. But I do appreciate the suggestion and your interest in pointing that out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is everybody ready? Ready. Please vote on your iPad. See, mine doesn't work that well. I have to keep poking it. I think it's dirty or something.